Oh, good day, everybody. This is Chris with the Ancient Scholar. Hope this video finds you doing well. And today I want to talk about something that I have been delaying or forestalling. And I think the reason for that should become obvious as I continue through this video. So this is a new-ish bike. And I say newish because I actually purchased it back in December, toward the end of December 2023. It is now the middle of March 2024. So it's been a little less than 3 months I've had this bike. And as you can see, it is essentially, at its core, at its base, it is essentially the same bike that I have been using as my primary trail bike, and that is a YT Izzo Core 3, or Core 2, excuse me. So why would I buy another YT Izzo Core 2? Well, there are a few reasons for that. First, there was a clearance sale last year. I don't know if it is still going on, where they were clearing old stock and they just happened to have extra large Izzos for less than $2,000 for a completely built bike. And just the price was unbeatable. And so based on that pushed me in a direction. And the other major reason is that my current Izzo is not really a Core 2. It has the frame of the Core 2, so the hybrid carbon front triangle, alloy rear triangle that you see on the Core 2. And essentially everything else is heavily customized. And so the build kit on my older Izzo is mid to high end. You know, I'm running a full GX drivetrain. I upgraded the rear hub to the DT Swiss high engagement hub with XD driver, the GX 12-speed. Was it a 10 to 51 or 52? I believe it's a 10 to 52 12-speed cassette, an X01 chain. I've got a Fox 36 on the front, overforked. I'm currently running 150 mils of travel. It's a Fox 36 factory, the Charger damper 2.1 damper in it. I'm running the Öhlins TTX Air rear shock. I'm running a different dropper. I'm running a wolf tooth dropper lever. I'm running a Shimano 4-piston brakes with the Ice Tech rotors. So almost every bit of that Izzo is heavily upgraded. And so what I wanted, and upgraded more toward an all-mountain enduro setup. So what I really wanted was to have something that I could use on my daily rides, at least when I'm not in the hospital working long shifts, whether I'm in my office and I get a lunch, I can just take it out behind my office where there's basically some double track and a little bit of single track that is fairly flat, fairly easy to ride, not particularly technical, and just to have a nice light bike that I could take out and just slam it for an hour or so and then keep it in my office. And this really does fit the bill for a nice, light, seemingly reliable trail bike that has suspension that I can just fully lock out and just kind of set and forget and ride as a light trail bike. And that really is what appealed to me most, is to have that option. And then I can use the other Izzo for my weekend riding. Well, right now it's a little different because I'm working more weekends than not. But that's the plan, at least, is to have that as more my weekend all mountain type riding, where I'm really doing more serious riding. However, let's talk about my experience now with this bike. It has been very interesting. I'm very ambivalent, unfortunately, based on some things that have happened. So I got this bike at the end of December. I think it was December 21st or 22nd. Had it shipped to my local bike shop, and then I went in and built the bike up and They were nice enough to let me use their equipment. YT sends you a little equipment kit, but the tools aren't, they're not super high quality, and the tools that I have are okay, but it's just so nice to go into a bike shop, have a really nice stand that you can throw the frame on, build everything up. As you can see, I installed armor in some places. I did not actually ride wrap this like I did my other bike, just because I did this myself. So you can see, I put some lizard skins and some Inley protection in some specific areas, wrapped with some silicone tape, the upper and lower chain stays, and you can see I've got some Inley here in the back. So I did, I armored it in some of the high wear, high risk areas and called it that, built it up, and everything seemed to work out well. Set the sag and took it out on a ride, and I got 2 rides out of the bike, a little less than 60 miles. My first ride was a really nice long ride out at the Arenas Valley Trail System outside of Silver City, near Fort Bayard, and it was about a 26 to 28 mile ride. And if anyone knows that system, it's super flowy, easy, non-technical riding, not demanding at all. So basically cross country. In fact, there's a big cross country endurance race that we do every year out there. It's a 10-hour race. And it's the perfect kind of trail for just grinding out miles all day long. And so that was my first ride, no issues there. And then I took it to work, stashed it at my office, and then took it out on a work ride in the Doña Ana Mountains, on the southern Doña Ana course. And there are a couple of technically demanding sections, but I didn't actually make it to any of those sections. I only got about 10 miles in, and I had a complete disaster happen in the rear hub. And essentially what happened was the internals of the rear hub sheared, and that shearing completely disconnected the hub body, became completely disconnected from the driver. And the pedals, just, you could spin them in every direction. So essentially the cassette became completely detached from the tire, and it wasn't the driver. It was actually in the hub body itself that sheared, and the driver was no longer able to stay connected because it just essentially sheared away from the rest of the hub. So I contacted YT and told them what was going on, took some pictures, and they said, okay, I think we might be able to help you out. I think there's a good chance we can help you out, is actually what they told me. And they just said, send us an email, explain what happened, send us pictures. So I did that. And that took about a week and a half, 2 weeks. And I finally got an email back from their U.S. service, saying, we can't help you out. That's actually a problem with Crank Brothers. That's who makes the wheels. Crank Brothers, the wheels and the hubs are the Crank Brothers Synthesis. It's kind of an entry-level hub. So I ended up then having to get a hold of Crank Brothers, and the exact same thing. Okay, well, make sure that you're registered the product with us, and then take it to the bike shop, get them to get us a diagnosis of what's going on, get us pictures. So, I took it to a bike shop in Cruces, and was at $20 for them to do a diagnosis of the hub, which we kind of already knew what was going on, but they did it. I paid them. They got me the info. They took pictures of their own. I sent all that to Crank Brothers, and eventually it was about 2 weeks. So Crank Brothers ended up sending a new hub, and or the hub body, all the internals. The shell of the hub was okay, so they just went ahead and sent the new body, driver, and all that. And then the bike shop put that in, and away I went. And so essentially for the first month, I didn't have a bike. And But I got it back after a month, and didn't have to pay for the new hub internals. I did have to pay for the labor, which again, altogether is about $30. And so I was down and out $30 there. A little disappointing, but I was back on the bike at least. And then I haven't had really any issues there with the bike since about a week ago. Things were looking so good. I thought, you know what? At the beginning of spring break, that was the beginning of this week, Monday and Tuesday, I actually was able to get some leave approved. As long as I came in for the back half of the week to cover while my boss was out doing stuff. So I was like, great, let's take a quick trip over to Tucson, which is just a few hours away, and get this riding out on Tucson. Now, I want to be very clear. The kind of trails that I took this on, I think that's important to mention here. I did 2 rides in Tucson. The first day we were there, I rode out by McKenzie Ranch. That's off of Marsh Station Road, and there's a race course there. And again, very buffed out, non-technical, beginner type stuff. Okay, this is not technical or challenging trail at all. And then I did spend a couple hours on the Arizona Trail that crosses Marsh Station Road, headed toward Colossal Cave. And there are some, I would call them moderately technical rocky sections on that trail, but a pretty solid trail nonetheless. Not what I would consider all mountain or enduro riding. And things went okay. I was noticing that the suspension in the rear was feeling a little rough, like there was too much air in that suspension. Like it didn't want to, it was hesitating. It was hard going through its travel. And at that point in time, I was thinking, because I've changed my diet over the last few months, and I've been really slimming up. I've been getting fit and trim essentially for warm weather. And so I've lost about 20 pounds. I was like, I've lost a lot of weight, and I just need to change the air pressure in the rear of the shock and get the sag set, because I'm a much lighter person, 20 pounds lighter than I was last year when I first got the bike and first set it up. That makes sense. So I didn't think anything of it. And then the next day, I actually went out to a place called Honeybee Canyon. Now, if anyone knows what Honeybee Canyon is a fairly non-technical, buffed out, it's about a 19 or 20 mile loop, the main loop there. There's some other really cool, there's something called the Ridgeline Loop, which I think adds another 20 miles if you do that. It's like a 38 or 40 mile. I didn't do that. I just opted to do Honeybee, and then crossed the road after I did the Honeybee Loop, got on the 50-year trail. And this is important because there is a section of the 50-year trail that goes into what's called Golder Ranch, and that is legitimate all-mountain enduro type technical riding. And I did not go to Golder Ranch, but instead I went south on the 50-year trail and took it down to Catalina State Park, where I met my wife. And that section of the 50-year has a few little rocky areas where you might call that moderately technical, but in general, not super technical. And during that ride, I noticed the rear suspension felt incredibly harsh. And I had it fully open as well, but it felt almost like it was locked out. And again, I was thinking, I really do need to change the pressure. So when I got back to my car, my wife was parked at Catalina hiking. I put my shock pump on to decrease the pressure in the rear shock, and a bunch of oil just spewed out all over the place. It was actually really upsetting. I got it all over my shoes, and my shoes have oil on them now, and they're kind of trashed, and oil just everywhere. And so at that point, it was pretty obvious that I had a catastrophic failure the internals of the shock. I don't know if a seal blew and air and oil mixed together in the air chamber, but the air chamber was full of oil and it just spewed out, and just complete disaster. And at that point, there was no more riding to be had due to that. And so, here I have a rear shock completely failed, and it was the stock Fox Float DPS shock. In fact, this is the Fox Float DPS that I had on my other Izzo before I put the Öhlins on. So I'm actually running this. This is the shock that came off of my other bike. And so I am going through Fox right now to try to have a warranty done. But if I didn't have that spare shock, I would have been out a bike at least for a couple more weeks, depending on what happens to Fox. And so, as you can tell, I've had a rather contentious time with this bike, and that's really too bad. And I really wanted to do a good review, but a third of the time that I've had it, it has been out due to mechanical issues, and not minor mechanical issues. These are major mechanical issues now. So far, a warranty has worked out, but I am a little disappointed by all of the major issues I've had, and I fully recognize that that could be an outlier, and that I haven't had any issues with this Fox Float DPS. But it is just something that I feel like I have to at least mention. And I will say that the build kit for this Core 2 is a little different than the build kit on the older Core 2 I have. And the biggest difference is actually the wheels. The Core 2 that I got, the Core 2 that I got a year ago now, actually. Yeah, a year ago in April, so 11 months ago, that Core 2 came with DT Swiss tires and hubs, and it had that DT Swiss 370s, super easy. I love the 370s, and the 350s are great hubs. Are really tough, really easy to upgrade. Whereas this particular Core 2 came with the synthesis, the Crank Brothers synthesis wheels, and essentially the rear hub is just a renamed Novatech hub that uses a little 3-prol system, which I'm not a big fan of. I actually had a Novatech hub on a Transition that I owned a few years ago, and that hub was utter trash. And so I'm not particularly happy about that. But that said, I haven't had any other issues with the rear hub. But the build kit's a little different on this, and I don't know that I would have had the same issues if this was running DT Swiss tires. Who knows? But be that as it may, everything else has worked out well. And the big compliment I can give this bike, and it's one of the same compliments I can give the other Izzo, is that the NX drivetrain that I'm running on this actually works better than any NX drivetrain I've ever run on any bike. And that was the same with the other Izzo. It came stock with the NX. Now I ended up upgrading to full GX with an XX1 chain. But for whatever reason, the NX drivetrain just works so well with this bike. It shifts fine. It doesn't drop the chain when you backpedal, and that even happens on my GX drivetrain on the other bike. But it just doesn't seem to happen on this bike. And so that's probably one of the big things I can talk about. When I go back, right, the chain doesn't drop like it does on the other Izzo with the GX. So kind of interesting. So that's one big compliment I can give this bike. But I am a little disappointed with all the other major issues that I've had. So it does kind of sadden me pain me a bit to make a video where I'm having to point out some issues, but you know, I also want to be honest with you all. And, you know, perhaps these are isolated issues, or maybe there's a bad lot of shocks or parts. I don't know. And hopefully things will get sorted out and I will not continue to have issues. All right, everyone. Have a great day. I know I'm going to. I actually have tonight off. It's a Saturday, so I'm actually getting out and getting a ride in. We've got some weather that is actually on the moving out, so we've got a fair amount of wind. I'm in some trees here, kind of protected from it, but we had a lot of rain yesterday and some rain and wind today, but I've taken advantage of a break in the weather. You can see that there is still some weather moving in and out of the area. But I'm going to make the best of it, and I'm going to put this video out, and I hope you all find this video helpful. I know some of you probably won't like this because it does put a bike in somewhat of a bad light, or at least components. But you know, I have to be honest as well, and that's just the way it is. So there you go. All right, everyone, take care. Bye-bye.